Man, I don't know how I feel about making this video, but I wrote a script, so I might as well just make it. So I'm gonna pull up the script and I'm gonna go with it. But hang on. Where is it? Okay. My brain has been buzzing since I started reading articles, and I love when I start researching about a topic because that means I've found something I'm passionate about. There's this drama, if you haven't heard, between Rachel Reacts and Gorlworld about overstepping her boundaries and touching the poo. But I think what's more interesting and what I want to talk about in this video is the relationship between the viewer, which I argue that reactors are paid viewers who make content for their opinions, and content creators like Amberland Reed in their parasocial relationship. I want to talk about the morality of greed and how it relates to YouTube monetization, as well as the talking about the role of femininity and the development of the bedroom, which is used as a part of a private space into a public space, up for criticism, and the policing of good versus bad behavior online and how they play into each other. If this is your first video you're watching of mine, hello. My name is Ari Whipple, and I don't usually make intellectual videos online. I usually do vlog style videos, but I've got a bug up my butt, and I have been researching. But I do have, here are my credentials. I have a BA in journalism and news editorial, and I just got my master's degree in creative writing with a focus in screenwriting. So I have a heavy focus on media literacy in my degree, both of my degrees. So I'm trying hard. I probably will comment on the Rachel Reacts thing, but I'm trying hard not to comment on that directly about what she did, because to me, what she did is indicative of a bigger systemic problem online of greed, hubris, monetization, and parasocial boundaries. So I have some quotes. Greed, on the other hand, is popularly understood as a personal moral choice, therefore correctly shifting the spotlight on to the individual. So we think of greed as like this thing that is like what corporations do and like these big entities, but we try to shift it onto the individual, like the Ebenezer Scrooges of the world. When the individual is greedy and uses their platform to make as much money as possible without regard as to the end justifying the means, such as Rachel Reacts, and hubris taking over, it will inevitably backlash because the disconnect the audience feeling abused over the lack of transparency. I think the consensus wasn't that Rachel Reacts wanted to make money, is that she was being a hypocrite in doing so, that the ends justified the means, and it didn't matter who she hurt or manipulated in the process to get that money. The thing I was wondering the most was whether this manipulation and the sharing of information through her Discord and spreading it across YouTube was a community guidelines violation of potential privacy rights or cyberbullying and harassment of some kind. And it started me drawing the thought about the unspoken rules of parasocial boundaries that we have with content creators. So I just have to disclaim that I don't think Amber Lynn Reid is a great person and that she does often abuse the community guidelines system. But I will say, over the years of hard work, she has become infamous and a certain amount of internet celebrity, gathering an audience of followers and haters alike. She's a relatively niche celebrity, only having 200,000, which still quite a lot, but 200,000 viewers in a specific corner of the internet, which is called gorlworld. But people know who she is, and the justification I use for her being a celebrity are the boundaries that have been crossed with her previously, and that certain things like video and photos of her have been taken of her out in the wild, paparazzi style, and that people gossip about her, people talk about her, people treat her as though she is a celebrity. And I really do argue that she is, though infamous, a celebrity of sorts. Plus, people give her money, and her videos get anywhere from 20,000 to 100,000 views, depending on the interest in the videos or live streams, which is not a small number. She does make quite a bit of money from that. From the article by Paula Fernandez, she talks a lot about parasocial relationships between content creators and viewers and the relationships they had. It can be understood that therefore celebrities outside the entertainment industry can nevertheless reveal themselves as successful contemporary role models and can be seen as recipes for life, which attract and inspire the public through products of the industry of fame. In other words, creators can exert powerful influence. And I think she has babies. She has people who she exerts powerful influence over. She does have a lot of haters, and even negative influence is still powerful influence over people. So, the influence extends to the relationship to the viewer. Even if the individual deceives himself in parasocial relations, the context of the receiver and the construction of the social relations around them will confirm the structure interactions and thus create personal connections. These relationships appear to be the form of social interaction the individual needs in order to fill social voids that may be present in their lives. But the article talks about the economic side of things through monetization and making money off that parasocial contact. I think that Rachel broke the boundary of parasocial relationship between audience and viewer member as a way to get an edge over other viewers because of that monetization, that she was getting paid for her experiences as a viewer, so she saw herself as a creator elevated to the level of digital influencer or celebrity and had to maintain that edge. But why lie to her audience and be inauthentic about who she was? I have an article for that. It comes down to this article: pretty and just a little sexy, I guess, publicity, privacy, and the pressure to perform appropriate femininity on social media by Valerie Steves. It talks about the bedroom as the alternate space where girls used to retreat from public spaces, but the rise of the internet has become increasingly public and private space online to share pictures and videos of themselves up for criticism by their peers. Personal televisions, music players, mobile phones, and internet provided girls with a way to cross over into the public sphere and access an immense range of cultural choices in which to pick and mix, which they went about the business of identity construction. However, when participants mentioned posting photos of themselves, a surprising number of them immediately placed a caveat around this practice, expressly indicating that they did post photos but did not post anything bad, inappropriate, crazy, rough, greasy, trashy, sleazy, or scandalous. Rather than opening up spaces for new performances of femininity, social media came with a clear and vigorous enforced set of social rules about acceptable ways of being a girl. I think this acceptable way of being a girl and what it means to be a girl followed us into adulthood, and a lot of women have acceptable ideas of performative femininity, what it means to be a woman, and that includes weight, behavior, as well as behaviors in the online space and how one acts. So Rachel Reacts was doing performative femininity of being too money hungry is seen as a masculine activity or seen as not performing gender identity or seen as performing not a feminine act. That being too power hungry, being too needy, being too is seen as unfeminine, and so they wanted to seem demure or neutral as a way of performing femininity online as acceptable behavior. But also, she was cashing in on so the reactors cash in on the fans' need for surveillance, drama surveillance. That's something that I was looking into as well as reading articles about surveillance. The entertainment lens views online drama to be watched through its emotive draw or appeal. Uses and gratifications theory from communication literature illuminates the importance of the role of the individual motives for using social media, one of the main directions of current research employing the uses and gratifications theory of the effectiveness of different media or content to meet individual needs. This is sometimes referred to as stalking or following someone's activities for entertainment that is passive, somewhat akin to rubbernecking or watching a fight in a school cafeteria. Stalking for surveillance purposes is more intentional and active. Another key aspect to the entertainment lens is the link to gossip. So her trying to get the tea, to get the edge on other people, is related to this stalking behavior. And I'm not saying it's right, but it's something that young girls do in the online space, this mean girl behavior, this online drama behavior. And it was something that was doing in micro lens groups that people follow drama online and will online stalk their friends and other social groups to get the tea on their friends. And Rachel did it to try to get the edge on Amber Lynn, and she overstepped a parasocial boundary between herself and Amber Lynn Reid. And she made it seem as though they were on a similar level as digital content creators and digital influencers, when in fact Rachel is a paid viewer and Amber Lynn Reid is a content creator. Does that make sense? And I think that's where the upset is coming from, is that she broke a parasocial boundary as a paid viewer, that she broke that parasocial boundary, and as a reactor, as a paid reactor, as a paid viewer, and whose opinions that people were following, that people pay to get their response to watching this content, their opinions about this content. So it backfired on her because she was trying to do performative femininity of trying to remain neutral and do certain things of performative outrage when in fact she was manipulating and acting on the same level of that she was doing underhanded things in the background. And she was doing personal moral failings because of greed and hubris. So in crossing that parasocial boundary, because of the perceived monetary gain through content creation, thus breaking the surveillance and becoming an active participant, it has broken a social taboo of the internet, which one is not supposed to break, the parasocial boundary, which has upset gorlworld and caused more than 11,000 people to unsubscribe from her channel. As Zachary Michael put it, she went too far. And how does one come back from that? Where does that leave the state of drama chasing on the internet, who watch for entertainment, who feel icky about the unappealing nature which has been created about the policing that has been done? I really don't have the answer to that question because it's fairly personal. What each of us does because of the relationship with gorlworld, with the internet, and our opinions about how people like Amber Lynn read are fairly individual and unique to each of us. How we interact with our devices define us, and how we move forward is, only our best guess. How you interact with gorlworld is how you're going to move forward, because it's a very individual thing. How you surveillance gorlworld, how you surveillance the drama in gorlworld, how you watch reactors is how you're going to move forward. And as Zachary Michael put it, asking questions about where they're getting that information and how they're going about their business is one way of going about it. But you're going to have to ultimately make that decision because it's based on your own perceived, your own perception. It's all based on you. But gorlworld's individual. Everybody's different. Everybody thinks of gorlworld as like this big, massive single entity, but it's made up of individuals. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. I've been reading a lot of articles. That's what I have to say about it. Anyway, I had a lot to say about it. So that was my script. Did you like my script? I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of it. All right. See you later. Bye.